Yonge and Eglinton, same subway station, same 3-minute walk, and one building's trading under $900 a square foot, while the other one right next to it, it just cost over $1,100 per square foot. Same neighborhood, but wildly different values. Today, I'm telling you exactly which one of these buildings are actually worth it and which ones are absolutely not. I'm walking you through the buildings in the area that I would actually pay attention to, the ones that I've sold in, and the ones my clients actually live in. The ones I tell my family to go look at first if they ever wanted to live at Yonge and Eglinton. My name is Arain. I'm a Toronto real estate broker, and I've been doing this for 16 years. And funny enough, this whole Midtown thing is kind of personal to me. See, I bought my first place back in 2008. I bought solo as a first-time home buyer, no idea what I was actually doing. And honestly, I was just trying to figure it out as I was going along. So when I talk about these buildings, I'm not just talking about it as a broker. I'm actually talking as someone who's actually been the person standing in the lobby trying to decide if this was going to be home. So if you find this useful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. This actually helps the channel a lot. And if you want help putting a plan together in this neighborhood, there's a link in the description to book a discovery call with me directly. Before I get into the buildings, a little bit of quick context, because this area wasn't always this. Back in the early 1970s, this was just really becoming a commercial nod. The Yonge and Eglinton Center goes up in 1974, and through the 80s, you get a wave of office towers climbing along Eglinton as well. There's actually a fun piece of local history here as well. Homeowners in this area have been fighting density for decades. There was a huge battle in the 1960s over a proposed high-rise on Duplex Avenue that locals called, and I'm quoting here, an obscenity. And then there was another fight in the early 2000s over two towers that eventually became Quantum, which I'll get into in a second. So some of these buildings literally only exist because somebody won a fight at City Hall decades ago. Then you get the real condo boom through the 2000s and 2010s, which is most of what I'm covering today. And on top of that, this is the neighborhood that just came out of 15 years of construction chaos of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, which finally opened this past February 2026. I've actually got a story coming up about that. Who actually lives here today actually matters as much as the buildings themselves. It's a real mix. Young urban professionals and dual income couples who want to be one subway ride from downtown without living downtown. A good chunk of downsizers coming out of the bigger houses nearby who want to stay in the neighborhood but shed the maintenance lifestyle. Long-term families too, especially near North Toronto Collegiate, which is a strong public school and a real draw for people with kids. And there's a real genuine renter population mixed in with owners, especially in the newer proposed build rentals. So this area isn't some sort of sleepy enclave. It's active day and night. Weekdays humming with commuters, evenings turning into patio dinners and dog walks. People actually joke and call it young and eligible because of how many single professionals end up living here. But underneath the joke, it's actually become one of the more balanced neighborhoods in the entire city of Toronto. All right, let's jump right into it. Now, we're not doing this by some sort of official ranked list, best to worst by any means. It's more like, here's what I like about each, who it's generally good for. We're gonna cover 7 buildings today. Building number 1, Quantum Towers. That's 2181 and 2191 Yonge Street. Minto built about 18 years ago and registered around 2008. I like this building because it's an end user building in most cases. Most of the clients I've actually sold in here bought here to live in it, not flip in it or not rent in it. And that matters. The hallways just feel different when it's owners and not investors. People maintain their units. People actually say hi in the elevator in most cases. The layouts are a big one for me. They're generous, bigger than what is being built today, because developers back then weren't shrinking every square foot to hit a price point by any means. Some of the high floor units are just massive. Actual penthouse sized penthouses, not the marketing version where it's 650 square feet with a fancy name. The amenities here are absolutely solid as well. You have a swimming pool, whirlpool, fitness center, lounges, and a theater room, business rooms, guest suites, and a full concierge. And it's sitting right on top of the Yonge subway line, which for a lot of my clients is basically a non-negotiable. The buyer profile here, young professional who wants space and transit, or even a downsizer who remembers what a real true bedroom actually feels like. The maintenance fees here are on the higher side, and I won't pretend otherwise. But once clients actually see the comparable unit in something of a newer building or something smaller down the street, they come around really fast. And what I love about this building is it just doesn't feel like you're trying too hard. It's just a well-run building with real square footage. Building number 2, Republic, 25 Broadway and 70 Roehampton. Tridel built 2010. Now there's a cool backstory. The city of Toronto struck a deal with Tridel to rebuild the old North Toronto School, which was generally falling apart at the time. In exchange, Tridel got to build 2 towers on either side of it. Inside, we're looking at 9-foot ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, of course your stainless steel appliances, granite countertops. And what I do love about these units, you have split 2-bedroom layouts on many of the floors, which I think beats stacked layouts every time. The amenities, well, they're a step above what you'd expect for 2010. 24-hour concierge, indoor pool with sauna and steam room, a private theater, party room with a full kitchen, business lounge, and of course guest suites and a cabana lounge on the podium level with barbecues. And the value here is still pretty wild. Under $900 per square foot for all of that. A 1-bed plus den with parking and a locker sold recently for about $615,000. That's definitely a strong number for the spot. The west-facing units, well, they look over that field that Tridal actually built in the deal with the city of Toronto. This view is absolutely protected. Yonge Street is actually a couple of streets away, so you're actually away from the chaos. I had a listing here a couple years ago, and I remember writing upcoming LRT in the description as a half joke, figuring nobody would ever hold me to it. Well, the LRT, it's real now. Opened this past February 2026. This one really works well for first-time home buyers, and honestly, a group I've got a soft spot for obvious reasons. You're not getting a lot of square footage or amenity per dollar here, but the building's got enough history now that you can see that it holds its resale value first and foremost. What I love about Republic is it doesn't feel like it's cutting corners just because it's under $900 a square foot. Building number 3, Art Shop. That's 2131 Yonge Street. Free development, registered between 2019 and 2020. And a newer build, and her pricing reflects that, ranging around $1,000 to $1,100 per square foot. Unit range from lofts around 325 square feet up to 1,800 square feet. And over half the suites have 10-foot ceilings, which is absolutely incredible. The amenity package is one of the most impressive ones around. Double height fitness center with separate cardio and weight rooms, indoor and outdoor yoga studio, a wine tasting room, catering kitchen, and on the rooftop, you have one of the large infinity edge pools in North America when it opened. Skyline views. This building is generally a showpiece. Location's excellent, just south of the intersection where the surrounding houses sell for $1 million plus. And then there's a Farm Boy and Staples right at the base. The only real knock, the west facing on the lower floor right on Yonge Street. You're going to be hearing the street 100%. Buyer profile is someone who wants new, builder finishes, and resort style amenity floor who does not mind paying up for both. What I love about this rooftop, I've taken clients up there just to see it, and that usually closes the deal on its own. Building number 4, 60 Berwick. Built by the Brown Group, tucked away west of Yonge Street on a generally quiet street. A mid to high rise around 17 floors, roughly 205 units. Unit suites running from 480 square feet up to 2,700 square feet for the larger layouts. So there's actually room to grow in this building, not just entry-level 1-beds. Amenities include indoor pool, gym, yoga studio, 24-hour concierge, guest suites, and a media room. And here's something I watch across every building: owners versus renters. Berwick's heavily owner-occupied, and it definitely has low turnover, and you feel that more in the community, people who actually know their neighbors. Strong fit for someone who wants to be close to Yonge and Eglinton without being in the middle of it, or a family who wants a bigger layout without having to go all the way up to a house. What I love about the Berwick is that quiet street feeling. 2 minutes from the chaos, but the building itself definitely feels calm. The finishes here are definitely top-notch all throughout. Of course, you got your stainless steel appliances, your built-ins, and your floor-to-ceiling windows in many of the units. Just overall, it feels luxurious. Building number 5, 30 Roehampton. Also Minto completed around 2016, 34 stories, close to 400 units. South and east-facing units look over the field. Suites run from 500 square feet up to 1,000 square feet, mostly 1-bedroom, 2+ dens, with a few 2-story loft townhomes units mixed in. Amenities cover the essentials well: concierge, gym, party room, media, rooftop deck with barbecue, sauna, guest suites, bike storage. The units are generally solid. Though I'll be straight with you, there are a handful of units that generally are awkward floor plans in the building, so walk through the specific unit. Don't assume every unit's the same. Overall, Minto's a safe bet across the portfolio. The fees here are definitely reasonable too. What I love about this particular building is the location relative to the noise. Right in the middle of everything, but those protected views make it feel more spacious than the square footage suggests. Because the number one question I get after these videos is, how do I know if a specific unit in one of these buildings is a good deal right now? And that's a hard question, because a building can be great and a specific unit can still be priced wrong or have a bad layout or a bad floor plan. And that's exactly what I'll walk you through on a discovery call, pulling the real comparables for a specific unit, not just a building average. Let's jump right back into it. Building number 6, Neon, 58 Orchard View. Built by the Pemberton Group, 20 stories, 218 units, built in 2016. The unit mix runs 1-bed, 1+ den, and 2-bed contemporary finishes. The glass and steel precast exterior has aged well in this building. Amenities include 24-hour concierge, fitness center, party room, media and screening room, guest suites, and a rooftop terrace lounge that actually gets used quite a bit. Tucked just off of Yonge, close enough to walk to Yonge subway station, this building tends to attract more of an end user crowd, similar to the Berwick. What I love about Neon, that is just generally underrated. It doesn't get talked about as much as the other units on this list, and I think that's just more of a marketing than an actual building thing. The units here are terrific, open layouts, granite countertops, open concept throughout, floor to ceiling windows in many cases, and generally just good finishes. And last on the list, 1815 Yonge Street. Crestford built 2014, 28 stories, 240 units, and still trading around $1,100 per square foot. Suites range from around 530 square feet up to 2,000 square feet, including 1 bedroom through 2 bedroom plus den units, floor to ceiling windows, granite or quartz countertops, engineered floors. The amenity floor is one of the nicer ones here. 24-hour concierge, fitness center, rooftop terrace with a fireplace and a lounge, and a proper theater room and a party room with its own kitchen. If you get a south-facing unit overlooking Mount Pleasant Cemetery, it's absolutely beautiful and peaceful. Downtown skyline in the background, and that view is protected forever. It's a cemetery, right? But I've actually had clients walk away from great units in this building purely because of the cemetery view. The only real complaint I hear constantly in this building is the elevator situation. But that's not exclusive to 1815 Yonge Street problem specifically. That's a every condo in the city problem. What I love about this one, honestly, is the view. One of the only spots on this list with a real, permanent, unobstructed sightline. So here are my picks for some informal awards. Best value overall, Republic. Based on what you're getting for under 900 square foot with real amenity package and a real track record to back it up. Best layouts, Quantum hands down. These bigger, older floor plans are just hard to find in anything being built today. Best amenity package, Art Shop. The rooftop pool is generally just on another level. Best for quiet and low turnover, well, this was going to be a toss-up between Berwick and Neon. Both attract owners who plan on actually staying there long term. Best view, well, we just discussed it. 1815 Yonge Street, assuming the cemetery doesn't bother you. And if I had to pick one building overall to tell a friend to go look at first, I'd say Republic. Price, location, amenities, and the building quality, the hardest combination to beat on this entire list. If you're actually shopping in this pocket of Midtown right now, and if you want a second set of eyes on a specific unit or building, let me know in the comments below. Is there a building in this area that I didn't cover today that you think deserves to be on this spot list? Or did I cover one that you've had a rough experience in personally? I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. My name is Arain. Thanks for watching.